Okay, let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So today what we are going to do is we are going to, okay, let me just first comment all of this. We are going to do generators, decorators, and we will also look at the two types of searching algorithms. And maybe if we have, and maybe if we can, we will also look at sorting algorithms. And then if we have time remaining, we will also look at how to pick random numbers out of, let's say, a loop or a list. Okay, so again, so first we start with generators. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to search for the definition. Okay, generators in Python. Okay, let's take a look what this is. It says a generator is a routine that can be used to control the iteration behavior of a loop. Okay, the generators are also iterators. Okay, great. So take a look at what this is telling you. A generator is a routine that can be used to control the iteration behavior of a loop. So first, let's see what iteration behavior is. For that, we will use a for loop. Okay, let's say for I in range, let's say 5. Okay, and I'm going to print I. Okay, and let me run this. As you saw, 1, 2, 3, and 4 got printed, and the for loop handled everything, right? For loop handled printing the value of I and then incrementing it and printing it again and then incrementing it. Like this loop did everything. Like I didn't have to do anything for the loop to work. So what if I want to control this? Okay, what if I want the loop to function in such a way that the value will increment only if I tell it to increment. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. Okay, for that, let's make a function. Let's say a def fun. Okay, and we will take the value of n here. And here we will make a loop for I in range n. Okay, and let's say, okay, let's do try this. Okay, and we will yield I. And you must be thinking, what is this, right? Like, what is this? What is this keyword yield? Okay, we will take a look at that in just in a second. Okay. So now first we are going to try to run this function. Okay, what we're going to do is we are going to print fun of 5. Let's see what happens. So when I try to print this function and I pass the argument of the value 5, it tells me that inside my loop I have the generator object at my function fun, and this is the address of the generator. Okay, so now let's take a look at yield. Okay, so yes, so we have a return function, right? You all of you guys know what the return function is, right? You have a function, and then if you have any return, if you have a return statement in that function, then whatever you are writing, like whatever the output of that function is, comes through the return function. And once you have a return statement in a function, the function ends right there, right? Then you have the print statement. Print statement means just the output. Whatever you're trying to print, it will display the output in your console, in your terminal, in your IDE, wherever you're trying to print it. That's how the print statement works. Okay, so now we get to yield. So the yield keyword is used to control the loop. Okay, so where in the first iteration where I tell it to yield I, it means that the yield keyword has stopped I, has stopped the iteration of I, but we can control it. Okay, so we can control the iteration of I because we have used the yield keyword. So let me just remove this and let's see how we can do this. Okay, so let's make an object. Okay, let's make an object is equal to fun. Let's see if fun 5. Okay, let's see if this runs. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to print object. Okay, again, we get the same output that the generator object of the function fun is at this address. So since we are controlling the loop, right? We are controlling the loop using the yield keyword, which means like how do I even know that I'm controlling it? I have to show it, right? I have to show how we control it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write, let's see, instead of printing object, let's see, I'm going to write object underscore underscore next underscore underscore. Okay. Let's see if this works. Okay, I'm not sure. And yes, great. So now we get 0. Why did it get 0? Because for I in a range of 5, the starting value of I is 0, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this print statement and I'm going to write this again. I'm going to run this and I get 0 and 1. And now I'm going to print this again. Now we got 0, 1 and 2. Great. Now I'm going to print this again and let's print it 2 more times. I run this, I got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Let's just print this one more time and let's see what happens. Okay. When I try to, in this last statement, in this line number 11, right? It says line 11 here too. It says that it gives me an error. It says the most recent call has a traceback error. It says that it has the stop iteration error, which means that the iteration has stopped. Okay. So when I use this method, right, when I use this next method, I can control the loop using this underscore underscore next underscore underscore and then brackets. So I have my yield of I, which means that the loop of I has been controlled, and then I can make it, I can, increment the value inside of that loop whenever I want using this next method. But still the value of I is between the range of 5, right? Because when I pass this value of 5, it goes inside this function and it is it for I in the range of 5, which means that n here is equal to 5, which means that the inside the for loop the I cannot surpass the value of the range of 5, right? Which is why I can print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But as soon as I try to increment the value once again, the value of the value after that goes outside of the bound of range of 5, which is why it throws me an error. Okay, so this is a simple example of a decorator. And let's take a look at some more examples. Okay, this was a relatively simple one, and we will take. Oh no, this was a generator. Okay, okay, not a decorator. These two are very similar in nature. Okay, so see, generators is a simple topic, but if you go into the practical implementation, I think it will be a little too complicated. So for generators, we're going to leave it at this. And now we are going to see decorators. Okay, let me just write this. Decorators. Okay, great. Okay, so before that, I have a question for you all. Okay, let's say I will make a function. Okay, let's make a function def fun n, and I'm very simple function. I'm just going to print n. Okay, and I'm calling this. Okay, so line number 19. Can anybody tell me what exactly is this? What will you call line number 19?
Function calling.
Yep, exactly. This is a function call. Okay. Similarly, and if I write this, what will you call this? Yep, what will you call line number 20? Okay, so just take a look at the syntax, right? This is fun, okay? This is the name of a function and then brackets. Then there's print and then there are two brackets, okay? So since this is a function call, okay, as someone said, this print statement, or rather a print function, because we are talking about functions here, this is also a function call. Okay, so when we start to learn Python, okay, like if you're in the beginner, when people only have started to learn Python or any programming language, first we learn things like print statement and input statement, and then we go on to learn things like function. So in a mind, there's a dichotomy created. Okay, these are the building blocks, and the function is something else. But try to keep in mind, see, like this, how fun, how this line number 19 is a function call. Similarly, line number 20, the print function call is also a function call. The only difference is that I am defining this function myself, and this print function has been defined by someone else. It has been defined by Guido van Rossum, the creator of Python, or anybody else in his team. So that's the difference here, that this function I have defined on my own, this function has been defined by someone else, but that doesn't change the fact that both of these lines are function calls. Okay, so since this is a function, okay, and we have seen how we can use functions inside of functions, and we can use one function to call another function, things like that. We can do the same thing using this print statement, or rather the print function. Okay, let me just remove this and we will take a look at very interesting example. Okay, so let's take a look at def. Let's say, what should we name it? Okay, let's just name it fun. Okay, def name fun, and inside the argument I'm going to name the argument as arg. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to print arg, I'm not going to print the argument, I'm going not going to operate on the argument, I'm not going to do anything on the argument, I'm going to do something with the argument. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the argument as a function. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the argument. So let's try to run this function. Okay, so and let's give it some parameter. Let's give it the parameter of hello. Okay, so I will call this function fun. Okay, and inside the function, okay, so just to show you some errors, I will give it the value of, let's say, an integer. Okay, and I run this and let's see what it gives us. It says the int object is not callable, right? I have this, I'm calling this function here and I'm passing the argument of 5, and then this function is trying to function call whatever the argument is, but the argument is the value of an integer. So Python is telling me that the integer is not something that you can call, it's not a function that you can call, which means that I have to send a function here. Okay, let's see what happens if I send print here. Okay, let's run this, and as you can see, I get the output as hello. So this is really interesting. Okay, try to visualize what's happening here. I have a function. Okay, the name of my function is fun, and I have an argument inside the function. This is very simple. All of you know it. But instead of printing the argument, inside of adding the argument to something, subtracting it, making the or slicing it as a string or any of these operations, instead of doing anything with it, anything instead of doing anything on the argument, I'm doing something with the argument. And what am I doing? Right? I will just remove this thing inside the brackets. Okay. Take a look at this line. What is exactly happening here? Right? Arg and then two brackets, which means that I'm calling a function. Right? I am calling a function, and the function is arg. Right. But arg as a function has not been defined yet, right? You can take a look at this entire file, and nowhere does it say what the arg function does or what the arg function is. But the caveat is that the arg function can take values from outside. Why? Because it is an argument in of itself of its parent function. So which is why when I call this function, inside that function, I can pass the argument of another function, and using that function, I can execute this. Got it? Any doubts here? Because this is interesting, but it can also be confusing. Any questions?
Sir, explain the last parts.
Mm, okay, so I have this, I am calling this function, okay? I have defined my function here and I'm calling my function here, okay? And when I call my function, take a look at the argument which I'm passing, right? Inside of that function, the argument which I'm passing is another function, okay? The print is a function of Python. So when I'm passing this function as an argument, okay, so this print goes here inside the argument, and then this function starts to execute, and this argument is exact work. This argue the value of this argument is print, right? Like for example, when we call this function of 5, right? This 5 goes to the value of n. Similarly, this print goes to the value of arg. And when I execute this statement, executing this statement is exactly the same as executing print hello, right? These two statements are exactly the same thing. Why? Because the value of arg is the same as the value of print. Why? Because I'm passing the argument as print. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So, uh, this. So let's make a function. Okay, let's make a function fun1. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to print hello. I will make a function. I will make a second function fun2, and I'm going to print, let's say, bye. Okay. So if I try to write this, okay, let's remove this. Okay, we will take a look at this in the next example. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write fun2 is equal to fun1. Okay. So when I write this, right, I write fun1 and then these two brackets, okay, which means that inside of this variable or this object, I'm trying to call this function. That if it had any return statement, if just in case if this had any uh, return statement, then the value of this return statement, the value of this string will get stored inside this variable as a string, right? That's not what I want to do here, okay? I don't want to store any return value in this variable, in this object. What I want to do is I want to equate those two functions. I want to make this variable into a function in of itself. For that, what I will do is instead of writing fun1 and then these two brackets, I will just remove these brackets. Okay. So what's happening here is this value of this function 1 has now been shifted into the value of function 2. Okay. Let me just show you. I will just execute fun2 and I will run this and I still get the output as hello. Okay. This is happening because first I define a function and then it transport the all of the values of that function 1 into the function 2, and now I can execute function 2 as however I want. Okay. Now I have a question for you. What if, okay, what if I delete function 1? Okay. What if I delete function 1? If now I try to run this, will function 2 still execute or will it not execute? Because function 1 has been deleted.
Yes, it will be executed.
Okay, let's take a look. And yep, it does execute. Okay, now can you tell me why did it still execute even though we have deleted the function 1?
Because function 2 has already taken the value of function 1,
Yep,
and after
exactly.
that we are deleting function 1.
Exactly. So you guys already know in programming, a line which precedes has higher priority than the line which follows. So this line number 24 has a higher priority than line number 26, which means that function 2 gets the value of function 1 before it has been deleted, right? If you have seen a photograph and then someone deletes the photograph, it still stays in your memory, right? Similarly, since function 2 already has the value, it stays in the memory of Python. So that is what's happening here.
Excuse me, Bhaiya.
Yes.
भैया fun2 तो हमारा वेरिएबल है और fun2 नीचे आपने जो डिक्लेयर किया वो तो फंक्शन है ना, कॉल किया, दोनों डिफरेंट चीज होंगे ना।
हाँ, तो देखो fun2 एक वेरिएबल है, लेकिन हम वेरिएबल में हम जो भी वैल्यू डालते हैं ना, जो मैं इंग्लिश में बोलता हूँ, इंटरनेशनल स्टूडेंट्स भी है, so whatever value we put in fun2, it takes the data type of that, right? Okay, I will uh, show you right here. Okay, let's say I have a variable of fun3. Okay, if I write fun3 is equal to 3, this will become an integer. If I write 3.0, then this variable will become a float. If I write something like this, then it will become a string. Okay, whatever I equate the value of a variable as, the variable changes its data type to become that, right? So here what I'm doing, I'm equating its value to a function. So the data type of this variable has turned into a function itself. Okay,
Okay भैया।
great.
And भैया also why didn't we put the bracket in while we are assigning fun1?
Okay, so if we write this, so when if we try to write it like this, right? So what will happen is function one will start executing, because function one and then two brackets, then this statement will start executing itself. So when it start, okay, so let me show you in a different way. Okay, I will show you completely in the return format. Okay, so I have this function fun1 and it's returning the value of hello. Okay, so what will happen here is that let me, and now what I will do is I will print fun2. Okay, and I will run this and I still get hello. So when I run this, right, so what's happening here is fun2 function2 is equal to function1 executed, because I have two brackets here. So first I execute the function one, okay? I execute this function, and what do I get in return after I execute this function? I get in return a string, and that string says hello. Okay, so this string has now been stored in the has now been stored in this variable. Okay, how do I know that? I can print the type of function2, and let's see what the output is. It says it's a class of string, which means function2 is now a string. Right, that is why I'm not including those brackets. When I remove these two brackets, instead of executing and then equating, it will equate those two values before it is executed. Let's run this and let's see. Yep. So now this function, the variable of function2, now it is a function instead of a string.
Okay भैया, okay।
Okay. So let's see if we have any more examples. Okay, I guess that's it. Okay, so you guys, we all learn more about modifying functions. Okay, we broadened our horizon of what it means to be a function in programming, and how you can modify functions. And let's take a little more tricky, like not exactly tricky, just an example which is not as simple. So we will okay. Let's take a def of fun1, and we will take some arguments here. Okay, again we will take, let's say a1 and a2. Okay, so and now what we're going to do is let's remove all of these spaces. Okay, so let's make the a1 an integer. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, like, if a1 is equal to 0, in that case what I will do is I will execute E2, and E2 I will print 400. Okay, not print, I will execute A2 with the argument of 800, and else, okay, in else I will write A2, or rather in else I will just write something simple. Okay, else print, let's say something pattern. Great. So now I'm going to call this function. Okay, I'm going to call this function function1, and inside a1, okay, It's the like I'm checking the condition if it's equal to 0 or not, which means I should be entering it as a value of an integer, right? So let's just for the sake of an example, let's just keep it as a value of 0. Okay. Here in the so since a1 is equal to 0, our a2 function is going to execute, right? But we haven't defined an a2 function yet, which means we have to enter the value of a2 as a predefined function. Okay, we have already seen the example that we can write print here, and this will work. Okay, we will run this, and it gets us an output of 400. Is there anything else I can enter here instead of a print, and the function and the program will not throw us an error? What what is something other than print, a predefined function other than this that we can enter here and we will still not get an error?
Sir, A2.
Hmm?
Sir, A2.
Okay, let's try this. We run this. It says A2 is not defined. Okay. So what's happening here is you did pass the argument as A2, and the A2 is equal to A2, but we don't know what A2 is, right? That's the entire point, that this A2 function has not been defined. We don't know that the function A2, we don't know what that is. So we have to do one of two things. Either we have to define A2, okay, right? We can just write def A2 and then we can write something. In that case, it will work. We are not defining A2. We are going to use one of those predefined functions in Python, like print or list or something like that. So if we print this, okay, imagine if there was a print statement here, then this statement will work. But if something else that can replace it and it will not throw us an error.
int.
Yep, exactly. I'm so happy you said that. So typecasting is also a function, right? We will run this. There won't be an output, but there won't be an error either. Yep, great. So what's happening here is, okay, let me comment out all of this. And let's take a look. I have this variable, let's say I have this variable xyz is equal to a string, okay, it's a string, okay, and a string of 500. What do I do to convert this variable from a string to an integer? What do? I write int and brackets, and inside bracket I will write xyz, right? And now if I try to check the type of this variable, I will try print type of xyz, and I print this. Hmm. Okay, I did not equate it. Okay, xyz is equal to int of xyz. Okay, now we run this. I get the class of integer. Okay, so I have used typecasting here. Okay, I had a string which was equal to 500. Then I took the string and then I used the integer function to convert that string into an integer, right? Now take a look at this thing. Okay, take a look at this. This is also a word here, and then brackets, which mean this is also a function, right? Integer, like converting to integer is also a function. Converting to string is also a function. Like so many things which you have been doing in Python since the very first day, right? And the first day of a Python class, whenever you started to learn Python, you must have learned how do we print hello world, right? Hello world, printing hello world was an execution of a function. Converting one data type to another is a function, which is why since this integer is converting to integer is a function, okay. And in this one here, okay, let me just put that everything. Yes, which is why, okay, this A2, I have this number 400 as a string, and this is something which I can convert into an integer, which is why if I pass the argument of A2 as the function of integer, this works. It doesn't throw me an error. Great. Okay. Now, yeah, okay. So if you go and study generators ever, if you know, yeah, we should also take a look at that. Not generators, decorator. I'm keep mixing that up. Okay, decorators in Python. You know, like if you ever go online and start reading about it, you will encounter this thing. Okay, let me show you the have they shown the @ function? Yep, this thing. Okay, so this is an important part of decorator, but the thing is that it's you know, see, even on this web page, it's almost at the end of the page. Okay, and before that there are, you know, like, to explain this, you know, to explain the concept of this line, you know, how then of name of the function works. To explain this, they have used, you know, they have shown a lot of code, right? There are lots of code and lots of explanation, and none of it is easy, in my opinion. So if you want to learn this, you know, you can contact me. You know, many kids from this class, you know, after the class, they contact me, and we, either me or either Parvez or either both of us, you know, we just come online and we will, you know, we just solve any doubt if we can, of course, in that case. But what I think is that, you know, all of this, like, to reach that level, or, you know, of @ of a function, to explain this, I think, like, the steps which are needed to be taken to reach that, I think many kids won't be able to follow, because it hasn't been a long time since you have been practicing functions. Okay, so practice, you know, inheriting one function into another. And after you are very comfortable with function, after you're comfortable with classes, then you can start with, you know, actual deep implementation of decorators. Before that, I would not recommend you to do that at all. Okay, so now we move on to the next topic, which is which was searching and sorting algorithms. Okay, and we will not go very deep in this either, because see, searching and I will tell you why I will not go deep. Okay, first let's just start programming. That's the best way to learn. I have a list. I have a list. ls is equal to 3 3 1 7 8 4 6 9 13 and let's say 64. Okay. And let's say I want to sort this list. What will I do? I will write ls is equal to ls. Okay, or rather, you can just write ls dot sort. Okay, let's see if this works. Like this, ls dot sort. I will print ls. Let's see if this works. Okay, we'll print this. Okay. And the list got sorted, right? Sorting means that the elements in the list are in different orders, right? Like first there's 3 1 7 8 4. They aren't in an ascending or a descending order, right? Which is why that if you want to make it in an ascending order, you know, the smallest number first and the highest number in the end. Okay, in that case, you just have to implement the sort method or the sort function, and you can just print the list and it will be sorted. And if you want to use it in a different in a descending, you will just write reverse is equal to true. And let's just print this. And the list gets printed in a descending order, which means the highest value is in the starting of the list and the lowest value is in the end of the list. Okay. So we're done with sorting. Okay, sorting ends here. But the problem is that you don't know how it is being sorted, right? The sort function, of course, it works, and this is how I want you all to use it, but you still don't know how it is happening. Okay. So the number one argument, I mean the argument, not as the Python argument, okay, I mean conversational argument, which I come across is that, you know, these functions like sorting and searching, they are more readily available in Python than, let's say, in Java or C++. And while that is true, okay, like while it is true that in the home library or in the, you know, when you code in C++, you import the stdio.h, right, the standard input output file, and then conio.h, which is also in an input and output file. In those libraries, in those header files rather, the sorting function does not pre-exist. But those are not the only header files or not the only libraries. There are other libraries such as the standard lib or such as the standard lib and C++. If you use those, you can do similar things like dot sort in those languages too, right? So that argument, like in Python, you can do sorting just like this, and when you do other languages, in those languages, you have to learn how to exactly sort, how to bubble sort or how to selection sort, insertion sort, merge sort, and everything like that. I don't think that argument stands because in every language you have that shortcut. Okay, so which is why we are going to take a look at just one of the algorithms of sorting, and similarly in searching. Okay, I will let my list stay like this, and I have to search my element. Let's say I have to search this element of 4. Okay, so let's see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to print 8 in ls. Okay, let's see what do I get as an output. Okay, I get the output as true. So I searched for, let's say I wanted to search for element 8 in this list. Okay, so I'm asking Python, okay, Python, is the number 8, is it inside my list? Okay, is my number 8 in my list? It says yes. Okay, Python tells me that your statement is true. Yes, the number 8 is in the list, but but it didn't tell me where is it in the list. Okay, for that, what I have to do is what I should do is I will write ls dot index. Inside index, I will write 8. Okay, let's run this. I get 3. Okay, this is index 0, index 1, index 2, and index 3. Okay, and at index position 3, I get my at index position 3, I get my value of 8. Okay, so this was very simple. Any questions, anybody, in case somebody missed it? Okay, so everybody gets it, I assume. Yeah, this was relatively simple. Okay, so we have these two things, searching and sorting, and I will just write all of the function. Okay, this is for this is for finding the location of the element. Okay, and let's say well, this thing I wrote before, 8 in list. This is for finding if the element is in the string, is in the list of the string. Either it will also work in list, but the syntax is a little different. Okay, so this was for searching, and for sorting it was relatively simple. Sorting list. Okay, and what did we do in that? Did ls dot sort for ascending order and ls dot sort for reverse is equal to true for descending order. Okay, so these are the 4 functions or two functions and two methods. Or rather, all of them can be called either function or method. It doesn't matter much. So we did these 4 things, okay, for which cover everything about searching and sorting. But this is not enough, right? When you are making your own algorithms, you need to know how these things are working. Okay, so what we will do is now we will go into MS Paint. Okay, and we will start with let's start with, I guess, let's start with searching. Okay, and let's start with searching, and I have this rectangle here, and let's say I will just make some badly drawn lines here. Okay, and can I do this? 4, 3, 8, 1, and let's keep it at 6. Okay, Okay, I have this list. Okay, and I want to search for one of the element in my list. Okay, what I can do is, let's say I want to search for the element 1. Okay, I want to search for this element. Okay, so one thing which I can do is, first I will check this element. Okay, I will check this element 4. Is 4 is equal to 1? It's not, right? 4 is greater than 1. Or I don't care if it's greater than or less than. What I only care about is 4 is equal to 1 or not. It's not, which is why I will go on and I will move to the next step. Okay, is 3 equal to 1? It's not, right? 3 is not equal to 1, which is why I will go and move on to the next step and I will check, is 8 equal to 1? 8 is also not equal to 1. And then I will go on and I will move to the next step, which is this. And is 1 equal to 1? It is, right? And since 1 is equal to 1, I will just write the index value of 1. And how do I know the index value of 1? I will just count the number of times I had to move forward, right? First I checked for 4, and since the 4 was not equal to 1, I had to move forward once, twice, and thrice, which means the index value of 1 is 3. Okay, what is this? We call this linear search. Why do we call this linear search? Because we are linearly searching for each element, and then we stop searching as soon as we get the element which we want, okay? The element which we desire. Do you think this is the best method to search for an element, or is there a better way?
There's a better way. This is not the
Okay,
best.
There's a better way.
okay, what is the
This is
better
the
way?
this is the best way when the element is at the first position.
Yep, that's true. And what's the better way
The
if the element is not at
the
the first
better way
position?
is a binary search.
Yep, you're correct. That's the binary search is the better way. Okay, give me a second. Okay, I'm drinking water. Okay, so I have this list, right? This didn't. This was nice. Okay, I have this list, right? Can I implement binary search in this list?
No.
No.
First of all, we have to sort the list.
Yep, exactly. We have to sort the list. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, let me just try to remove this. Okay, and we will keep this. Okay, now what we're going to do is we are going to do binary search. To do binary search, first we have to sort the list. Okay, and when we sort the list, okay, is this something else? Let me just remove this. Can I edit this one? Okay. Okay, let's just remove all of this and the numbers are 4, 3, 8, 1, and 6. Okay, and I will just remake the rectangle or the list. Okay. Okay, and now I will write this. So I had 4, 8, 3, 1, and 6, right? When I sort this, how will my element look like? Okay, I'm sorting it in an ascending order. What I will do is I will write 1, 1, 3, 4, 6, 8. Okay. Everybody agrees, right? This is how the list will look like after I've sorted it.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and now I want to look for my element. Okay. So in binary search, what I'm going to do is in binary search, okay, binary means 2, right? It is the binary. Take a look at the first 2 letters of the word binary. The first 2 letters are bi. Bi means 2, right? So by means 2, which means we are going to divide this list into 2 parts. Okay, so let's see how we're going to do that. So the length of the string is 5, right? 0, there are 5 elements, so the length of the string is 5. And what is 5 divided? We have to divide the list, which is 5 divided by 2, which is 2.5. But we are doing integer division, which means it will get rounded down to 2. And which element is at position 2? This one, right? At index 2, I have my number of 4. Okay, and I'm looking for my number 1. Okay, is number 4 equal to number 1? It is not. Okay, we already know this. Number 4 is not equal to number 1. But this time I do care about if number 4 is equal to is greater than or less than number 1, right? We already care if it is equal to or not, but in linear search we don't care if it's greater than or less than. Now we do care if it's greater than or less than. Okay, since 4 is greater than 1, so since 4 is greater than 1, what we are going to do is, we know that whatever element we are searching for, it exists in this zone, right? Between here and here, right? Because since all the elements on the right side are greater than 4, and we know for sure that whatever element we're searching for is less than 4, which means we can eliminate all of this. We don't need to look at all here, and we save memory, we save time, because we have already eliminated half of it. Okay, so now what we are going to do is, we have 4 at element number 2, right? And we have 1 at element number 0. Okay, so 1 is at element 0 and 4 is at element 2. So in that case, what we are going to do is, we will write 0 plus 2 divided by 2. What is this? 0 plus 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay, so we get this is equal to 1, right? Very simple. So which element is at index 1? This one, right? This element 3 is at index 1. Is 3 equal to 1? Is the value of 3 is not equal to 1, right? And the value of 3 is also greater than 1, which means that again, whatever element we are looking for is on the left side of 3. Okay, and there is only one element to the left side of 3, which and now we know that since there is only one element, we check for that and we find our element. Okay, and I will just Control Z everything here. Now we will look for an element. Let's take 2 more cases. Okay, we are looking for an element 4. Okay, if we look for an element 4 using linear search, first we take a look at this, then we take a look at this, and then we take a look at this. Okay, we find our element 4 in 3 steps. But if we do binary search, in that case, we straight away look for the middlemost element first, right? So if we look, if we are searching for 4 in binary search, we get that in 1 step. Why? Because it is in the middle of the list. Okay, now we are looking for our element 6. Okay, instead of looking for our element 4, but if we're looking for element 6, okay, again we start from the middle. Okay, in binary search we always start from the middle, and since 4 is less than 6, right? Before now we only encountered elements which were less than 4, but now we want to find 6, and 6 is greater than 4, which means that we can eliminate all of this and we only have to look here. Okay, we know it exists somewhere to the right. Okay, now again, our index value of 4 is 2, right? The index value of this element is 2, and the index value of this element is 5. Okay, 2, 3, and 4. No, it's 4. Okay, 2 plus 4 is 6, and divided by this, all of this divided by 2 is equal to 3. Which means now we are going to be searching from, we are going to start searching from element number 3. And what is element number 3? Element number 3 is this one. And since the number we were looking for is 6, and the element which exists as 6 is equal to 3, and so we have found our element. Okay, so this was the 2 types of searching. Okay, one was linear search and the other was binary search. Okay, let's and the we will I will just write this time complexity. Time complexity of linear search is order of n, right? And the time complexity of binary search is order of log n. Okay, so if you don't know what time complexity is, don't worry. It is not a concept to be studied yet. It's a concept of data structures and algorithm, which is an entire subject in of itself. But if some of you know what time complexity is, great. So okay, linear search works in order of n, binary search works in order of log n. If you don't know what time complexity is, don't worry about it. It's something for the future. Okay, you will be studying data structure at one point or the other. Okay, it's 12:02. Okay, we'll take 5 minutes off and we will resume at 12:07. Okay. Okay, so let's resume. Okay. So these are the two types of searching algorithm. Linear search and binary search. Yeah. Okay, so my mic was a little far away. Okay, now it should be better. Okay, so these were the two types of searching algorithm: linear search and binary search. So what's happening here? Like, you guys already, I guess, figured it out. Okay. So in one we search linearly, in the other we divide the entire list into two parts, and then we search for one part each, and then we keep dividing it. Okay, so similarly, there are many sorting algorithms. Okay, there are many sorting algorithms like bubble sort, selection sort, insertion sort, merge sort, count sort, and things like that. But I realized that like I'm drawing circles and arrows here, like this is not enough to understand. Like the drawing like this is not enough to understand algorithms. So like to understand how an algorithm works, you need to understand how to represent it visually, right? Like you need to be able to visualize how the algorithm is working. Only then you will be able to understand it. So and that can't be done on on an IDE or an MS Paint. So I will send some videos in the I will send some YouTube videos in the WhatsApp group after this class, and you can see it from there. One sorting algorithm that we can do is called count sort. Okay, so we are going to do count sort, and we will take a look. Like, and we will take a look at how count sort exactly works. So count sort, as it sounds, okay, it works by counting. Like it just counts how many elements are appearing, how many times. It counts that. Why did I open this? It counts that, and then it makes a new list with those variables. Okay. Let's say I have a list ls1 is equal to, and I have, let's say, 3, 5, 4, 7, 1, 1, 6, 7, 9, 3, 2, 5, 7, 1, 3, and you know, let's take one more 9. Okay, I have this list. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, how count sort works is I'm going to create another list. Okay, and this is an empty list. Okay, and in empty list, what I'm going to do is I will write for I in, and for I in, I have to iterate through this list. Okay, so what I will do is for I in range of length of ls1. Okay, so the length of this list, I don't know what it is. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this list has 15 elements, so the length of this list is 15. So this for loop will work 15 times. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, whatever element I encounter, I will increment that inside this list. Okay. Okay, let me think of a better way to to explain this, because I hadn't planned to explain count sort. I was planning to explain bubble sort, but I think count sort is something you will be better able to understand. Okay, so instead of making list2 an empty list, what I'm going to do, I will make list2 is equal to ls1. Okay, the only reason why I'm equating is so that the number of elements stay equal. Okay. Or rather, if I already know the number of elements, I should rather write 0 in all of them. Okay. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. Okay, I will write first, I will do ls2 is equal to ls1. Now I want to change all of the elements in my second list to be able to equal to 0. Okay, so what I'm going to do is for I in ls2, I is equal to 0. Okay, now I'm going to ls2, and let's see if all of my elements are equal to 0 or not. Okay, let's see. Okay, did it not get converted to 0? Okay, so I is the temporary iterator. Okay, so again we have to do for I in range of length of ls2.
ls of I is equal to 0 करेंगे तो
Can you repeat that? Yeah, you are exactly right. ls of I is equal to 0. That's what we have to do. But for that, first we have to convert I into an integer iterator instead of a list iterator. That's the first we have to define it using a range of length. So what we'll do is ls of I is equal to 0 is equal to 0. Okay, now this should work. Yeah, we get an empty list of this size same as this list. Okay. So now what we are going to do is we are going to iterate through the first list. Okay. And now what is the first element here? The first element is 3, right? So what I'm going to do is, since the first element is 3, I am going to increment the value of 3. I'm going to increment the index of 3 in the second list by 1. Okay, and how do we do that? Okay, so let's see. Okay, I have, so my ls1 of I is equal to 3. Okay, so what I'm going to do is ls2 index ls of I plus equal to 1. Okay, and I have to close this bracket again. Okay, take a look at what's happening here. ls1 of I, which means the ith index of the first list. Okay, the ith index of the first list. Okay, it starts from 0, so the ith index of the first list is 3. Okay, so this entire thing turns into 3, right? Which means that the third index of the second list has been increased by 1. Okay, this is what's happening here. Now let's run this. Let's run this. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to print ls2 once again. Let's see if this works. Okay, this did not work. Okay, why did it not work? Let me just print I. Okay, I works, and also print ls list of I. Okay, ls1. Okay. Okay, why is it? Did ls1 also turn into all zeros? Like, it shouldn't happen like this. Let me just print this. Yep. So when it's iterating through the first list, it's still giving me all zeros. Okay, that should not be happening. Okay, when did the first list turn into all zeros? Let's change this. Okay, that's better. So what was the statement? ls2 index of
भैया ऊपर जो लूप है for I in range length of ls2 वहाँ पे ls1 आएगा ना
No, we are just checking for the this is just for to check the length of the list, and the length of both of the list is same. Right, the length of both of the list is 15.
Okay,
This is just a number. This can be replaced by 15. That doesn't matter. Okay, now let's try to run this. Okay. Okay, great. So now it's working. Okay. I don't know why the first list also got converted into all zeros, even though there's no statement for that. But again, okay, now it's working. Take a look at this thing. Okay. Take a look at this thing. At index 0, I have the value of 0, which means that the element 0 is occurring 0 time in the entire list. Okay. Take a look at this list. Is the number 0 occurring even once here? It's not, right? Again, now we move on to the first index. So the first index has the value of 3. This means that the number 1 is occurring 3 times in the list. Okay. Number 1, 2, and 3. And now we move on to the next index. Okay, so at index 2 we have the value 1, which means the number 2 is occurring exactly once in the above list. So we have this number 2 here, and this is occurring exactly once here, right? And let's take any number. Okay, so the number 15 is occurring 0 times. So the number 15 has the value of 0. At index 15 has a value of 0, which means the number 15 is occurring exactly 0 times in this list. So this list has been defined as in this list as in a different way. So what we're going to do is we are going to iterate through the second list. Okay, so for I in the second list, what we're going to do is we are going to change the first list. Okay, and let's do it in the same way as we did before. Okay, length of range of list of 2. Great. So now what we have to do is we have to check the index, and then we have to check the value of index, and
Yeah,
then we
range of length of LS2.
yes, right. Range of. So now what we have to do is first we have to check the index, and then whatever the value of index is, that will get appended as many times in a new list. Okay, so for that, let's make ls3 equal to is equal to an empty list. Okay, so in the first iterator, the value of so in the first iteration, the index of I is 0. Okay, so ls the list2 of 0. Okay, this will give us whatever value of that is. So how do I do this? How do I take the value and add it as many times? Okay, so what I'm going to do is for I in so if the value is 3 times, I have to okay, yeah. So again, for the I in range ls of and let's take j here. Okay, of j, I have to take a different iterator. Okay, so or rather I think this increases the time complexity to n square. Okay, so I know the theory, but I'm forgetting the syntax. Okay, so let's just take a look at count sort in Python. Okay, because it's simpler than this. Okay, we don't need two for loops. I'm sure of that, but that increases the time complexity by a lot. And by time complexity, I just mean that it will take a lot longer to execute. Okay, they're using a combination of for loop and while loop. Okay, so forget this. Okay, understand the theory. Okay, so index 0 is appearing 0. So that your index is the number Okay, and the value of the index is how many times you want it. Okay, so at index 1 you have 3, which means the number 1 will appear 3 times in your new list. Okay, it's like you if there are any questions in the theory, you can ask me, and I will send the practical implementation of this simple code right in an hour or two after the class. Okay, everybody gets the theory, right? Like what exactly is happening here. Okay, if you get it, just say yes.
I have a doubt.
Yes.
Like the total elements in the list is 15.
Yes.
So there will be 15 indexes. But
Yep.
what if the list contains an element that is greater than 15, like 30 or 32? Then the counting of that element will be displayed at what index?
Yep, you're right. You are exactly right. So, okay, so in that case, what we have to do is, okay, let's say I have a list, okay, I have a list, let's say list 4 is equal to, and we have 1 and then we have 34, okay. 34 is greater than the length of the list. So what we're going to do is, we'll make a list 5 is equal to 0, and not exactly like this, and how do we do it? Okay. Okay, make a square bracket 0 multiplied by the max of list 4. Okay, this is how you will make the second layer. Okay, in this case, since all of the elements were smaller, I just duplicated the list because I was planning to use the same list itself to get the sorted output. But if you want to use a different list, this is how you can execute it. Okay, you take the maximum value and then you
Yeah, your screen
make,
is frozen. I'm not able to see anything.
okay, let me know when you can see it, because should I stop and start again? Can everyone else see it?
Yes, Bia,
No,
can you
yeah, it's
please
visible.
reshare?
We can see it.
Okay, I will just
Yes,
stop and share again.
yes, we can see.
Let me just share Parsham this time. Okay, so take a look at this. Okay, we are making a list. Okay, we are making a list with element 0, and then we are multiplying that list by the maximum element of the previous list, right? So the maximum element of the previous list was 34, which means that this list number 5, will have a length of 34, and all of those elements will be 0. Okay, I just this just clicked right now at how we can make a better list. Okay, so this is how you can do it in case the maximum element is greater than the length of the list.
Okay, Bia, I got it.
Okay, so let me just comment this out. Okay, so now let's go back to a list, but we will take a different one. Okay, we all took ls 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, that's too much. We'll make a list something. Let's say let's take the name as RDT. This is a list is equal to, and let's say this has some elements. Okay, this has, let's say, 6, 8, and some words. Hello, and 7, 1. Okay. I have this list. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5 of 6 elements. I want to pick a random element from this list. Okay, so I want to print, let's say I want to print RDT, and I can just randomly pick, let's say I print the element at third index, and then I print this, and I get 7. But still, I am the one who's picking 7, right? I am the one who's picking the element, which means it is not random. I want to pick something random from this list. How can I do that? Any ideas? Have anybody of you studied the random package?
Yes, we are random modules.
Yep, exactly. So what I'm going to do is, first to pick something randomly, first I have to import the random package. So for that I will write import random. Okay, I import random. And now I want to pick something random for this from this. Okay, I want Python to choose something random from this list RDT. Okay, so what I will do is I will write print random dot choice, and here inside brackets I will write RDT. Okay, try to understand the sequence. Random dot choice means we are trying to choose something at random from this list of RDT. Okay, let's run this and we get the output as Python. So this has randomly chosen Python as its output. So if I run this again, will I still get Python or will I get something else?
Anything from the list.
Okay, yep, I will run this again, and this time I got 6. I run again, I again got Python 6, 8, hello, Python 8, Python once again, okay. So the Python is repeating quite a few times, but 7, 7, hello, 8. Okay, so, and we also got 6 in between, I think. Okay, so as you saw, each time I ran this code, my output was different, which means that Python is picking randomly from this list. So this is how the random module works. Okay, but this is not the only method of the random module. Okay, there are different things we can do. Let me just comment this out. If I want to print something from instead, and I don't have a list. Okay, if I want to print a number from a range, okay, what I will do is I will write print random dot rand, which stands for rand, and I will write random integer. Okay, so rand int. Inside the bracket, I have to specify the list of my integer. Okay, I will write 1, 100. And in this case, I will run this, and I will get 25, 13, 68, 73, 10, 71, 55. Okay, I get different numbers each time. So this is what's happening here. When I print random integer, this is the second method of the random library. Okay, so first was random.choice. The second is random.randint. There are, I think, 10 or 12 or even more methods than this. And you can just, okay, so I'm just sharing this tab, so I will have to stop sharing and share my entire screen. Okay, great. So what I will do is I will write random package in Python. Okay, and I go to the official documentation and you will see all of the methods which are used. Okay, so I use I use this function, right? Random integer. There is the random range function, random range, which includes the starting point, stopping point, and also how many indexes, how many jumps, how many steps you can skip. Like if you don't want any even numbers, then you can, enter the value of skip as 2, and it will skip over all of the even number. That you can do using the rand range. We already use choice, and then you also there also a choices function in case you want to print more than one output. Then there's random.shuffle. Okay, let's take a look at shuffle. Okay, I think this is interesting. Let's see if it works on list random.shuffle, and inside bracket I will write RDT. Okay, let's run this. Okay, so this function is not returning us anything. It is just changing the value of RDT. So instead of printing this function, we have to print RDT now. Okay, and let's run this, and we get 8761 Python hello. Okay, so it took this and it just shuffled the elements of the list around, and we run this again, and we get a different output. We run this again, and again we get a different output. Okay, so this was random.shuffle. So this is the official documentation. I want you all to go here, take a look, okay? This random.sample. There's also random.random. Okay, this I want you all to try this, okay? Try random.random, that's an interesting one. And there are lots and lots. I was thinking there are only around 15, but here I can see there are more than, I think, 20 or 25 functions here. Okay, so go on this documentation page, try all of these. If you're all the, like how to execute them and the explanation of the execution, both of those things are given here. If you have any trouble importing, or rather you shouldn't have any importing problem because this is a native library of Python. So in that case, it should work as good as new. And yep, I think that's it for today. And all right, it's 12:33. That's it for today. Thank you all for coming. If you have any questions, you can ask in the chat box now or later. And if you have any troubles in any of the question, I will be sending you the the code for count sort and some videos for those selection sort and insertion sorts.
Thank you, Bhaiya.
Where
Thank
you
you, sir.
gave us a question last week. Can you please share the answer of that question?
Okay, can you remind me of the question?
Inheritance for आपको.
Inheritance, right? The inheritance in a tree-shaped form, right? Okay, I will share the answer in an hour or two.
Okay.
Okay, but nobody submitted it. I told you to send the GitHub repository link in the group. Nobody did that. If you have uploaded it on GitHub, just send it. Okay, I will, because HOD sir told us to generate better certificates for the top 10% of the class. So if you participate in this, your chances of being in those 10% increases.
Good work, Siddharth. I'm happy
Thank you,
to
sir.
see you that you are doing so lots of work for your juniors and you are motivating them doing the projects and all other things. Sometimes I attended your full lecture and I have also learned the Python from you.
Sir, I also learned from myself, because all these small holes I'm covering for myself too.
It was a great experience for you and for all the students who are attending it, because it is a part of peer-to-peer learning where one senior member or one classmate are teaching us. It was a great pleasure. And Parvez, is there?